Hi friends, I'm Mukesh Kumar. Today we'll learn Azure Virtual Machine. Azure Virtual Machine is one of the several types of on-demand, scalable computing resources that Azure offers. Typically, you choose a VM when you need more control over the computing environment than the other choices offer. An Azure Virtual Machine gives you the flexibility of virtualization without having to buy and maintain the physical hardware that runs it. However, you still need to maintain the virtual machine by performing tasks such as configuring, patching, updating, and installing the software that runs on it. This video will give you the information about how you can create the virtual machine, what things you should consider before creating the virtual machine, and how you manage it. So let's begin. In Azure, you just type the virtual machine in the search bar, and you will land on the home page. So I'll go with the add virtual machine. So you'll be presented some of the fields that you have to fill. So this is a basic template. On the first thing first, you need to define the subscription on which you want to create the virtual machine. So I defined my subscription. Then you need to decide the resource group. I create new resource group. Then you have to define the virtual machine name. This should be unique name across. This should be unique. And you define the region. I'm in North Europe, so I'll take North Europe. Then you define the availability option. So in availability option, you define that how your virtual machine should be redundant. For example, you want to uh, how you want to maintain the high availability. So there are two types of high availability techniques. So one is the availability set and one is availability zone. So in the availability set, you can distribute your machines within the same data center in different racks. And for availability zone, you can distribute your machine in different data centers in a region. So I'll leave this as default. Then the image on which you want to build your screen via virtual machine. So I'll take Windows Server 2019 data center genuine. This is just like an operating system, and you can build your own custom images, or you can choose from the marketplace also by clicking on this. So there are plenty of images available on marketplace. So I will take default provided by Microsoft, and then Azure Spot instances, leave it default. Then you define the size. So this defines how strong your machine is. Basically, this defines the number of core, RAM, size, everything. So let's look at the size available. So there are different series: DS series, D series, B series, A series, F series. They are meant for different purposes. And every series you will see how are the SKUs basically. So if we select B2S, which offers two vCPUs, 8 GB of RAM, 4 data disk, and then input output and the storage. And this will cost 58.22 pound per month. So I have selected DS1 V2 series. This is basically the capacity of your machine. Then you define what is the credentials. So I'll choose my credentials. I'll enter my credentials. This is the credential which you will use to log in into the system. Then the the ports that you want to allow. So because we want to sign in we want to take the remote control of that machine. So we'll open this 3389 port. If you want to open another port, like you want to access HTTP port 80, then you enable it. Or if it is Linux, if you are accessing through SSH key, you can also do that. But for now, I want only the remote desktop control protocol. And then if you have existing licenses, you can say yes, and then you can utilize your existing licenses and apply that into the Microsoft machine that you're going to get it. And if you don't have, leave it. I'm leaving it blank, default. Then next you will choose the disk. In the disk, there are two types. So one is a premium, three types basically: standard, and premium SSD. They are for different purposes. I'll leave this default. And because premium SSD is by default, we have a managed disk because this is a premium SSD. This is a managed disk. So by default, it is encrypted at rest. But if you want to encrypt on your keys, you can also do this. I'm leaving it as default. And next, data disk. If you want to attach the data disk in your VM, then you can add a new disk that will be persisted in your storage. If you don't do that, you will by default get a temporary drive. I will show you later, but that will be basically temporary disk, temporary storage that will go away or that might be deleted when you restart the machine. For now, I'm not using any data disk. I'll be only relying on the operating system disk. Next is a very important part, the networking. So every virtual machine has to exist in certain virtual network. If machine cannot live its own, it has to be part of a virtual network. I'll create a separate video for virtual network. I'll share the link also. So here it asks that, do you have any virtual network? I don't have any virtual network at the moment, so it is creating new. You can create your own. So it is given by default lab vnet name. You can choose the different name if you want. And then the address space. So here it is selecting 256 space. You can get more space by having 16 address, 16 sided address, which is this much address. But for demonstration purpose, I don't need this much range. I only need 24 sided range. Then, as you know that every virtual network has subnets. So a virtual machine has to be part of subnet, and virtual network has to be divided by into the subnets. So in this subnet is taking 10.0.0.20. Okay, you can take your own name if you want. So public IP. Now virtual machine has, if you want to take the remote control of the virtual machine, then virtual machine has to be assigned a public IP. Basically, you assign the public IP and private IP um, to the network interface card. So because we want to access that machine, we want to take the remote control of that machine, so we need the public IP. So here we select the public IP. We can select none as well if you don't want the public IP, but we are selecting public IP because we need it. There are different SKUs for the NIC, so I'm leaving it default, which is basic. Every SKUs has different advantage. And then again, it is giving you a chance to select the IP, the port that you want to open. I want to open 3389 port, which is designated to RDP. I don't want any load balancing. Next is the management. This is some related to the monitoring and diagnostics. I don't want port diagnostics to be enabled. And then by default, the auto shutdown option is also defined. So this is enabling the auto shutdown and giving certain time like 7 p.m. in the evening, it will be shut down. And then it will email me that this is going to be shut down. And I don't want to backup enabled. Next. In the advanced section, if you want to install certain extensions to your virtual machine, then you can have this extension selected. For example, I want to install IIS server IS web server into my machine, then we can select it. I'm leaving it default because I don't want any extensions to be installed. But this is just like a script that you want to execute before your VM presented to you. This VM is generation one part. Generation two is another generation, but that has a limited functionality. Next, you can tag it as default in any other resources in Azure. So let me tag this environment JS dev. If you can create and create. It is deploying our template. Okay, so the deployment is done. Let's see what it has created. And before that, we can see how many resources it has deployed as part of the virtual machine deployment. So remember that virtual machine, when you deploy, it's not only the virtual machine you create. There are other supporting resources you have also created. So for example, when a virtual machine is created, then a network security group is also created, and then a virtual network, a public IP address, one network interface, one virtual machine itself, and there is a schedule also created that will take care of auto shutdown of your virtual machine. So let's go to virtual machine now. On the virtual machine, we are presented some of the useful information. For example, what's a public IP address assigned to this virtual machine? What's a private IP address? Click on the networking. You will see all the inbound port rule open for that. This is network security group rule applied. So you can see RDP is allowed, outbound default outbound rules. And if you go to the network watcher, it can show you the topology it has created. Yeah, I like this view because this gives you enough idea that how many machine and network interfaces created under a virtual network. So if you create multiple machine, you will see multiple uh, diagram and sub branches here. So this is virtual network. It has a one subnet default, which is also, and then one network interface card, which is associated to a virtual machine. It has a network security group, and it has a public IP address attached to it. So now let's log into our virtual machine. Take the public IP address. Enter the credential that you provided earlier. Accept the certificate. It's logging me in, creating my profile. So here we have new machine ready. This is basically a server, so we get the server control. Now we can do anything you want. So let me show you one important thing is about the drive that we have selected while creating this. So you can see we don't have any data drive apart from this temporary drive D. As I said, that temporary storage drive D is a temporary drive which will be deleted, which the content will be cleared when you restart the machine. If you want more storage, which is persisted storage, then you can attach a data disk to it, and the data disk will be stored into the storage account. One very important thing in the virtual machine is that if you shut down virtual machine from here, then your machine will go into the stopped state. But remember that your CPU and other charges will still incur, and you will still be paying. So always stop your machine from your portal, and that will take your machine into the deallocated state, and by which you will not be paying any compute charges. You will be only paying the disk storage in the storage account. If you think that data disk is required after your virtual machine is created, then you can come on the disk option, and then you can attach the new data disk as per your need and depending on your size also. I hope you like this video. Also, please don't forget to stop and delete this virtual machine. Thanks for watching. If you learned something new, then please like this video and do subscribe to my channel for motivation. Thank you.